Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 6 o'clock, and I just wanted to welcome everyone tonight to the Brandon Mayoral and City Council Candidate Forum. My name is Rachel Nyman, and I'm with the Brandon Chamber. This forum is sponsored by the Brandon Chamber as well as the Brandon Valley Journal. And before we get started with tonight's program, we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you wouldn't mind standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Talk? All right, good evening, everyone. We'll settle down over here, gentlemen. Already it's starting. No, just kidding. Okay, well, welcome, everyone, to tonight's Brandon Mayoral and City Council Candidate Forum. I'm Carmen Doherty, and I'll be your moderator for the evening. This forum is sponsored by the Brandon Valley Area Chamber of Commerce and the Brandon Valley Journal. Tonight's forum provides our candidates an opportunity to publicly present their views, opinions, and qualifications for running for mayor or city council. Our candidates for mayor this evening include T.J. Cameron, Jack Parliament, and Terry Buck. Our candidates for city council Ward 1 are Barb Fish and Courtney Sneller. So tonight's forum will proceed as follows. First, each of our candidates will be allowed up to a 2-minute introduction statement. We have a timekeeper seated here tonight that will limit candidate responses to the time allotted. After opening remarks in rotating order, the candidates will then respond to a series of questions prepared by the Chamber and Journal. Candidates will have 3 minutes for each of these questions. We will then ask questions that were submitted by the public before the event, followed by questions from those in attendance or through Facebook Live with the same 3-minute limitation for responses. Finally, we will allow up to another 2 minutes for each candidate to give their closing statement. I'd also like to announce that this forum will be broadcast on Alliance Communications Local Channel 18 for basic subscribers and Channel 21 for digital subscribers. This video will also be available on the Chamber's YouTube channel tomorrow. Now, let's begin with opening statements. You will each have 2 minutes, and we will start with TJ.
Good evening, and thank you for attending. Thank you to the Journal and the Chamber for hosting this event. I'm honored to be standing here tonight as a nominee to serve as Brandon's next mayor. With that nomination, I pledge to be just as committed to your future in Brandon and the residents as I am committed to my own futures of my children here growing up in Brandon. I grew up in a small town, Brookings, and after graduating, I moved to Sioux Falls. From there, I had the opportunity to move all over the country, several states, and ultimately, when I got married to my wife, Caitlin, 11 years ago, we chose Brandon as the place to live and raise our family of all the options that we had. I've managed budgets far exceeding in my professional career Brandon's entire general fund, and I think that that's an important aspect of my qualifications. I've had roles in the professional world such as district manager, regional director, vice president, senior director, and different roles with different companies. I've also owned several of my own businesses and own my own business today. I had the responsibilities of talent planning, organizational effectiveness, brick and mortar company infrastructure, financial responsibility, and a whole lot more, and I always surrounded myself with the best talent and challenged them to be the best that they could. I don't know about Jack and Harry, but I'll ask them the same question tonight. Tonight I make a pledge, and I'll ask if they're willing to join me, as this will be our 4th mayor in 4 years in Brandon, and I've been committed to this process for some time. Tonight, I pledge 10 years minimum service if you'll have me as your mayor, and re-elect me if I'm doing a great job, that I will continue to serve for a minimum of 10 years, and I'll make that commitment to each and every one of you tonight. I'm not here just to put a feather in my hat or because I've done so many other things. I'm here because I feel like I can serve my community and I have a skill set necessary to help with our strategic planning. I'm the right candidate to help our community through our current growing pains, the right one to be fiscally responsible with your tax dollars, and the candidate that will lead and create effective plans for our future growth, and the best candidate for building a talent plan for the future and to ensure we meet these goals, including execution. I hope I can earn your vote tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Thanks for the sponsorship of this forum. I think it's a really nice way of getting to know the candidates involved. Let me just tell you a little bit about myself, just in case people that don't know me know will now know my background a little bit. I worked on railroad for a little over 40 years. Started out as a switchman, brakeman, conductor, locomotive engineer. Then I went into supervision as a superintendent of operations, basically telling trains, not dispatching, but telling trains and train crews when and where to show up for work. From there, I got promoted to the president of the D&I Railroad, a local short line in Sioux Falls. They haul rock, ethanol, a variety of products. And served in that capacity for the last 20 years until I retired. In that position, I had responsibility of a multi-million-dollar budget and served on a couple of different boards where we also had fiduciary responsibility for large budgets, and we worked on a lot of infrastructure projects. Infrastructure for someone in the railroad business is tracks and rehabbing tracks and switching facilities and things like that. Not a lot unlike what we do here with sewer and water, streets, those types of projects. So I've worked with the contractors and designers, and it gives me a real basic knowledge of how to deal with infrastructure projects. We have lots of needs here in the city of Brandon, and those skills will help me as mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Now, Harry.
Okay, I think I'd just say the same thing these other two fellas said. I'm Harry Buck. I've lived in Brandon for 40 years, off and on. We had an opportunity to move away from Brandon, and then we had an opportunity to come back, and we jumped at the chance to come back to Brandon because it's been of all the places we've lived, which is about 4 or 5 states in the Midwest, Brandon's been our absolute favorite place to live because of the people here. And so anyway, I would also like to thank the Chamber and Jill with the Journal for sponsoring the event. And I think I heard on the news tonight that this is National Vietnam Veterans Day. I don't know if there's any Vietnam veterans in the room today, but if there is, yeah, you all look too young, I guess. But people that we need to thank also for their service. I've participated in these forums in the past, but I usually had Carmen's job as chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, so I'm more used to asking the questions rather than answering them, but I'll give it my best shot. I also, my wife, Barb, asked me not to embarrass her tonight, and so with that, I'd like to introduce my wife, Barb, in the back. So, you knew I would. It's a great community. We just have a fantastic community, so many positive things going for us, and I guess my goal would be to help keep things going in the right direction. Thanks for coming.
All right. Thank you, Harry. Barb?
Hi, I'm Barb Fish. I am currently serving as the Ward 1 Council Alderwoman person, and I want to thank you for the privilege and the opportunity to do that. It's been a very interesting last 3 terms. So we have been in Brandon for 19 years. Our children are Brandon Valley graduates. They are Lynx through and through. We came from Rapid City, and when Gary was going to have a job change, I didn't want to come to East River. I wanted to stay in West River. And so it was a little dicey at our house, and he did the research and said, we need to come to Brandon because of the school district, because we had a 7th grader and a 3rd grader. And so that's how we ended up in Brandon. So we came to Brandon because of the school. Our realtor at that time told us that oftentimes empty nesters, they move back to Sioux Falls when the kids are gone, because most people live in or work in Sioux Falls, and we know that. But we've chosen to stay in the city, and the majority of our friends have too. We have our doctor here, our church, our chiropractor, our dentist, all of the businesses that we utilize throughout the day, and I like living in a smaller town. We're farm kids, and I like being able to walk down to the ball field or drive down to the ball field and know some people in the park. We attend the school events. We're looking forward to the Mary Poppins play that's coming up. And so I am a strong advocate of Brandon. I'm a strong advocate of Buy Brandon. And don't get me on my soapbox about that. That may come up later, but we'll stop there. So I just appreciate the opportunity to be here and to have served in this capacity for a number of years.
Thank you, Barb and Courtney.
Yes, so I'm Courtney Sneller. Most of you probably don't know who I am, so I'm very thankful for the opportunity to come here tonight and talk a little bit about myself and also get to meet more community members. I grew up in a very small town, about a population of 1,000 people. We moved to a couple of other larger cities. I then got married to my husband, Josh, and we have 2 small kiddos. And we decided to move to Brandon after living in Sioux Falls for a few years. We were striving to find a smaller community that really gave us that hometown feel, and also were able to provide to our children. So I have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, actually just turned 1-year-old, and just broke her first tooth a couple days ago. So we're experiencing all new things here for our second little one. I really do appreciate, though, the fact that Jill was able to work with me in terms of getting things put in the paper. Jill, thank you for cooperating and working with me through that process. I've appreciated all the help through that. I'm really looking to get to know more community members and get really active into the community. Going through the petition signatures, it's been an eye-opening to get to know more members of the community, but ultimately I'm looking to bring a fresh perspective and new lens to the community. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Courtney. So we will move on to the prepared questions. Each candidate will have a chance to answer each question and have 3 minutes to respond. The first question, what motivates you to want to be elected to the position for which you filed, whether it be a mayor or Ward 1 Alderwoman? And this question will start with TJ, and then the next question will start with Jack.
Great, thank you. You know, this opportunity to potentially serve as the mayor of Brandon is quite an honor. What motivates me is the commitment to serving my community. People serve their community and their nation in many different ways, from our military service to our first responders, and all of those are appreciated by myself. And this is my particular unique skill set where I think I can offer this to my community and do good for the future, not only of my children, like I mentioned earlier, that are 3 and 6 years old that will be raised here, but that commitment to my children's future is the same commitment that I'm making to your future as residents. Some folks may consider, the fact that I just have young children, that may be the only interest, but I'll tell you today that growing up in South Dakota, specifically in Brookings, and seeing all the different cities and small communities in South Dakota, as well as several throughout the nation, the thing about a small community is youth engagement is just a small portion of the things that benefit everybody in a community. So whether people choose to move here to retire, Whether people choose to move here to live as independent partners, husband and wives, young families with no children, or whether you have children of your own or grandchildren, the engagement of our youth is a very important factor in the growth of our community and the success and keeping those folks on the right track. It separates many small towns in South Dakota, and if you just think about some of the other communities similar in size to Brookings and even Brandon, you'll know exactly what I mean if you consider those all over the state. A good engaged youth is great for all of us. I believe in public service and stepping up to serve our community. The other thing is that I'm a very busy guy, but nothing's more important to me than my family, my children, their future, and all that they believe in. I'm motivated to ensure Brandon continues to be one of the best places, not only in the state, but in the nation to live, to raise a family, to start your career, to start a business, which I think I can definitely contribute to the success of our future and current business owners. I have a lot of unique ideas to help with growing that, and even a place to retire in. So that's what motivates me to be your mayor of Brandon. Thank you.
Thank you, TJ. Jack?
All right, thank you. Well, it's going to be a little bit of a common theme here. I think we have, and Brandon, that's one of the reasons I love Brandon and why I'm running for this position, is we have young families and we have people like myself who are retired and built a new home here because this is where we felt we really wanted to live. My kids grew up here. And my grandkids are involved in all the sports, and so those things are important to us. I think our park system and our school system are the two things that draw people to Brandon. And once they get here, I almost like to say we got them, because they see the values in town. They see the community, how clean and how wonderful it really is. What I want to do is just continue that process. We have lots of infrastructure needs. We're growing. I think it's good growth. I don't think it's growth that is outpacing ourselves. I think some of our neighbors, or I'll say Sioux Falls' neighbors to the south, have had their infrastructure problems because they've grown so quickly. We've had good growth over the years, and I think I want to help continue that. Infrastructure, I'm a big infrastructure guy. You'll hear that word out of my mouth a few times probably tonight. But it is important. We need to reinvest in our infrastructure, keep it well maintained, and renew it as needed. So that's, for me, is just to improve on the quality of life here in Brandon. One common theme I hear when I'm out talking to people is communication. They want to hear more communication back from the city. They also want to be heard. I'm running on the slogan of a voice of reason. And I truly believe that, because when I talk to people, they'll have their issues, something's going on with the city, maybe P&Z is having, zoning ordinance changes. They just want to be heard, and then from there, treated fairly. And we struggle, quite frankly, sometimes on doing that. And as mayor, I just want to make sure that those people, everyone has that opportunity to speak their voice. And I would encourage them all to not be afraid to come down here and speak to us as the council and as mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Harry?
Thanks, Carmen. Once again, I'd say the same thing these fellows said. I think that there is a lot of common themes in what we're doing. I had a thought that, what happens on a national scene, like what Joe Biden does and what John Thune does, doesn't necessarily affect the people in Brandon on a day-to-day basis. But what our city does affects people in Brandon on a day-to-day basis. So, Brandon has been so good to us and to our families, and I just really feel the need to kind of continue what I would consider about 30 years of public service on various boards and things here in Brandon. And, my motivation is to continue and help Brandon continue to be as good as we can possibly be. That's it.
Thank you, Harry. All right, Barb.
So I had not intended to run again, and I had made that pretty clear over the years. But as I was getting closer to the time when the petitions were to go out, I realized that I have a few special projects that I would really like to see either continue or get to the finish line. I don't know if I can get some of those to the finish line. And a couple of them are, the first one is development to the west side of town. We can get water out there, but we don't have sewer capacity out there, and we need to get a sewer line. These are always such sexy things to talk about, but we need to get a sewer extension line out on the west side of town so we can open that up for development, because those, whether it's properties, housing, whatever, will come into the city limits and help support our tax base, and we all know we need housing. And so the other thing we need out there is we need a redundant sewer line. So several years ago, we were able to strike a deal with Sioux Falls where we send all of our wastewater west, and they take care of it for us, and we got rid of the sewer lagoons, and I think everyone was thrilled about that. Well, we need a redundant line, because if something were to happen to our main line, that wastewater would have to come back to our reclaimed sewer lagoons, and we don't want that to happen. So those are two really important issues that I feel very strongly about that I've been working on the west side of town. The east side of town, we have a similar situation. We're going to have a new elementary school out there. And once that school develops, housing is going to develop around there. That's all bare land out there, just prime land for development. We know the developers are anxious to develop it, but we've got to get a sewer line out there. So again, something that we've been working on, but we need to continue working on. That west side sewer line, we went from like 1.2 million to 4 million. Now we're back to 2.4 million. It's kind of a moving target. So those are two things. Several years ago, we bought 41 acres of land to expand Aspen Park. We're working with all of the organizations to define where they want to go, what they want to do. We've got a master plan that we're working from through the park board. So that's another point of interest for me. So I feel like I have some thing to give back still to the city. I have the institutional knowledge, and I feel that I can continue to drive those things forward for growth. Don't be afraid of growth. It's going to be controlled. We have a great Planning and Zoning Commission. They will help us make sure that it's managed growth, but we do need to continue to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. And now Courtney.
So like I said earlier, we chose Brandon. We're committed here. We want to be here. My family wants to be here. I want to see my kids grow up here. And going through this process, I've, like I said, been able to talk to a lot of people, a lot of citizens, a lot of people like me, a lot of brilliant-minded people who have lots of thoughts and suggestions on how things should be going. I want to hear that. I want to be able to help support them. I want to be able to help support you. When we have ideas, it's being able to take the ideas and be able to act upon them. And it's always finding the right place, the right time to be able to act on them, but also being able to give back in a way that I can, which is being able to take those thoughts and ideas and place them into action. So what motivates me is being able to serve my community in a different capacity, and I'm very excited to do that. So thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. All right, we'll move on to the second question, and we'll start with you, Jack. What particular skills or experiences qualify you to serve in this capacity?
Well, I mentioned some of the some of my business background, but I'll go in a little bit into some of the associations and boards I've served on, which is not a lot different than serving on the council or being mayor. The South Dakota Railroad Board, I was appointed to that position back in 2006, and we served as the fiduciary body for all of the railroad trust fund monies. Most of you probably aren't familiar with that, but that's a lot of the federal and state funds that come into the state for specific infrastructure programs on all the railroads in the state, not just the ones owned by the state. There are private ones as well. So I served on that board and served as its chairman for 4 years as well. And I also was highly involved in the American Shortline Railroad Association. The association itself is headquartered in Washington, D.C., so that meant a lot of dealing with federal monies to get back to the railroads. Very similar to what we did at the state board. But there we got to the point where investing back into the infrastructure. As I said, I'm an infrastructure guy, and I think it's important to invest and keep reinvesting in infrastructure. For the city of Brandon, that means water and sewer, and water towers, and a lot of things to do with water, water treatment plants and those types of things. But also, I believe in the park system here. It's been mentioned before, people come to Brandon for the school system and for the park system. What are the two reasons they come to town? It's either they're coming to a ball game at the school or maybe a ball game down at Aspen Park. And so the school takes care of themselves and they do a great job. We need to take care of the park. I think there's numerous improvements that can be done down there. Some of them have been mentioned already. We'll eventually get Ironwood extended down there, so that'll be a second entrance. And one of my goals is to improve the parking lot down there. I really think that we can eventually get that paved and expand the parking down there as well. So those are just a couple of things about with my background that I think will help me serve as mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Harry?
Okay, it's kind of hard to answer this question without sounding like you're bragging about yourself. But here it goes. I think that, that some of the things that make me qualified primarily would be that I've been blessed to have two really successful business careers up until now. And my first career was in the seed and crop protection business. I spent 30 plus years with a company called DeKalb Seed Company. Moved around the country a lot. My first job with that company was, out of college, was to work as a production trainee. And the first day on the job, they said that scale pit could sure use cleaning out. Wanted to know if I could clean out the scale pit, and I did. And 25 years later, they called me and wanted to know if I'd like to be the national sales manager. So I was very fortunate and very blessed. We had to move from Brandon, which was a struggle for us, but we couldn't hardly turn down the job opportunity. We were a $200 million company in sales annually, and I had a $15 million budget to manage, and things just went really well. I did it like a 5-year tour of duty, I called it, in the home office, and we had an opportunity to come back to Brandon, and we really jumped at that opportunity. And so we were here, and then we left, and then we had an opportunity to come back in the early 90s. And so we jumped at that opportunity. I spent the next 10 or so years with DeKalb and Monsanto, and then retired from there and decided to go into the real estate business. And so for the last 15 or so years, I've been in the real estate business helping people generally buy or sell real estate. A great opportunity to meet new people coming to town. When people call me and they're coming here from Texas or wherever, it's interesting the reasons they give for Brandon, but oftentimes they've done their research and they know that we have one of the best school systems in the state, if not the best, certainly the best AA school system, and they like what they see in Brandon. And so that would be my motivation, my qualifications, I guess, to serve.
All right, thank you, Harry. And Barb?
Like Harry said, this is always difficult when you feel like you have to brag about yourself. It's not what my mother would approve of, but I'm going to say that my leadership experience is my strong suit here. And twice I have had to step in to be interim mayor when Mayor Beasley was forced to resign because of health reasons, and when Mayor Lundberg resigned because I was president of the council. That meant that I came up to be interim mayor, and I did that for several months both times. And I'm not trying to bring up bad news, but I want to put this into context. Think back 4 years ago, 2018, 2019, we were going through some pretty contentious times on the council and throughout the city. And I was in that leadership position to help council move through that. We had someone file a false report on radium in our water, forged a report, was the state investigated, they were charged, found guilty of forgery. We had that to deal with. And then myself and several council members and other staff people started receiving nasty things in the mail. Now, most of you probably don't know all of this was going on, but we had to put out, we had to continue to run a city. But in my particular situation, my nasty piece of mail came to my office. And because I work in a financial institution, that was a problem. Is what she's dealing with presenting a problem for our customers, for our staff? This had to be investigated by the Brandon Police Department, which I'm very proud of, and by the Sioux Falls Police Department. And if my company had not been supportive of me, they could have said, well, Barb, you just need to go on elsewhere. So those were things we were dealing with, and I was in that leadership position to continue to keep things going. And we did it. We got over the hump. The staff was wonderful. The other council members were wonderful. Our city attorney, Lisa Marceau, was right there with us, and we got through it. And I think we've come over the top, and things have settled down dramatically. But leadership is not always easy. And I feel that I came through that. We all came through that in really good standing. So I would say that my benefit to the council is my leadership experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb and Courtney.
Yes, so for the last 8 years, I've been in human resources, specifically a manager over recruitment. So recruiting is people. We work with people every day. I work with magnitude of people, trying to get them to come into our organization. It's being able to talk about your organization, being able to have the passion for your organization and be able to share that. A lot of what we do is thinking proactive versus reactive. What are the needs that we're going to need to take care of our residents, take care of our patients? What does that look like for us? And bringing out-of-the-box solutions. So it's not always, if any of you are familiar with recruiting or hiring, it's always trying to think outside the box, to be creative, to bring people into our organization. And we connect with people. We have to build and nurture a relationship with them. They have to know who they're going to be working for. It has to match their mission, vision, values, and what they believe in. So what I'm looking to bring to the table for this are particular skills. Is I've been a part of workforce planning, strategic workforce planning, being able to develop plans to not only be sustainable, but they're going to be realistic for the organization. They're going to align with what the organization believes in, but also with what the people need. So being able to build out plans that probably won't be able to see any fruits of our labor for the first couple of years, but the sustainable plan should be able to help the next 3 to 5 years out even further. We have a strategic outlook in our recruiting department. We need to make sure that it's sustainable, that it's realistic to maintain. And also an element of change. So in recruitment, we do a lot of technology integrations and process improvement. And it's being able to walk through why we're making the change, but also bringing people along for that change so that they're involved and invested just as much as we are as leaders. And then, of course, it's being able to listen to a team and listen to those that we're bringing into the organization. So I have a team of 30 individuals, and I listen very closely to all of those 30 individuals because I know the changes that will be made within that team will also impact the people that we bring into our organization as new employees. Same concept I would say would apply to the citizens. We have to be able to nurture and build relationships, but also bring along people on that journey to make sure that they understand what we're trying to accomplish. So the skill sets I bring forward would be creative thinking, being able to think outside the box, bring new solutions, new perspectives, being able to have a strategic element and planning, being able to have a change management process and process improvement, bringing forth a level of management and leadership skills, and then also being able to bring forward collaboration. So, thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. All right, this question we will start with Harry.
Should I go on that one?
What?
You started with Jack. I haven't gone yet.
Oh, yes.
Why, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for yielding a moment. I appreciate it. Actually, that's a little bit ironic because that's a little bit about my answer. I've had a lot of learning about myself in my corporate career and throughout my business successes and learning experiences. And what's ironic about that is I've learned one of my opportunities is, I do talk a lot and I come off strong sometimes. But I want the community to know that I'm aware of that, and I'll be an advocate for us. And I constantly check myself on conserving my over communication when I do listen, when I do need to listen. So thank you for that learning experience again. Some attributes, I guess, before I say experience and skills that I've learned about myself in both my corporate career, taking hundreds of personality tests, and my real life experience. Although I do communicate a lot and strong, I have been known to be a great listener. I want to hear what the community's input is, and I want to give you guys plenty of venues to express ways that are comfortable for you to communicate with the leadership team. I'm a proactive communicator, so what's also an opportunity can be a strength, and I want to give easy and accessible venues to the residents on ways to learn about what's going on in the city when you're ready for that. As far as unique experience and skills that I've picked up over the years, talent planning is going to be a big need of our community as we continue to grow, and was just spoken about. But we'll need to build a talent plan to support our growth and the quality of life that we expect as residents here, with succession plans for current roles and future growth roles. We'll be asking a lot of our city staff over the next 5, 10, and 20 years, and I'm experienced in building complex talent plans to set an organization that I think can translate to a community for successful and stable growth. Not only as the owner of a business that I have to continue to talent plan for growth, in my corporate experience, most specifically in my last 2 roles or 3 roles, I've implemented and been part of creating entire organizational effectiveness roles and charts for the entire organization. That was both at Profile by Sanford as a senior director there and as vice president of a growing retailer. Managing execution, not only creating great plans, but also being able to execute those plans, being self-accountable, and be willing and courageous enough to ask questions on keeping everybody accountable. We've done a lot of planning in Brandon, and I always talk about strategic planning being imperative to what we need to implement over the next 5, 10, and 20 years. But just as important as the plan is the fact that we need to execute that plan. And as I mentioned earlier, it's again maybe an attribute, but my commitment to Brandon and saying that I'll commit tonight to serving no less than 10 years if you'll have me and continue to believe I do a great job. I think that will support our stability and growth as we grow as a community together. Thank you.
Thank you, TJ. All right, this next question, we will begin with Jack, or excuse me, Harry, I'll get this right. Why should residents vote for you in the April 12 municipal election? Harry?
Well, I think that from my business experience, and I really firmly believe this, that the best indication of future performance is past performance. So I think that people in Brandon should probably look at the folks that are running for office and decide, who has done the best for the community and been the most successful in the past. Because I really believe that future performance is tied to past performance. So that's my primary thought on that. Now the competitor in me has a strong desire for us to continue to be the best place to live in South Dakota. I guess my goal would be for people to say that Sioux Falls is that town located 5 miles straight west of Brandon. But more seriously, we do need to continue to have a good, solid working relationship with Sioux Falls. I actually had an opportunity to meet with Mayor Tenhaken today, and I was excited about his comments. He seems to be, a very solid person and wanting to continue to have a strong working relationship with us. And so I think that's a positive thing. And then as far as, another business philosophy of mine is that you should absolutely find the very best people to work for the city or for your company, and then let them do their job. I'm not a micromanager. I think we should hire the best and let them do their job. That's it.
All right, thank you, Harry. And Barb?
I would say that continuity of leadership is important in this position. We're going to have a new mayor. We have the Ward 3 Alderman seat open. If Jack would move to mayor, that seat would be open. And the remaining council members, the longest tenured one is 4 years. So I think continuity of leadership is very important, institutional knowledge, to get us over some of the rough spots. I'm thrilled to see TJ and Courtney here. New generation, that's terrific. I've been preaching that for years. We've got to get the new generation, the younger generation in and involved. So I'm happy that they're here. I found that it was very important for me to work in the chamber, junior senior parents, PTO, Brandon Community Foundation. All of those things were springboards for me to move up to the city council level. And I think that that is an important base. You get to know the community, you know the players in town, and I'm happy that they're involved. I would say that, again, since we have to brag about ourselves, I would say that my experience and long tenure is important to this council at this time.
Thank you, Barb. And Courtney?
Thank you. So as I said before, I'm a young mother of two. I want to be able to connect more with more people like myself too. We chose Brandon. We chose Brandon. We want to be invested here. We're committed to this community, this city. My husband's a volunteer firefighter for Brandon. We want to be more invested. We want to be more ingrained into the community. And with that, I don't have any biases, or I don't have an unconscious bias for this. I've grown up in a small town where you end up creating things in your head because of either your parents or your friends or your community or your school. I don't have any of that here. What I see is opinions that need to be heard. I see that people have strong thoughts on things, and I don't have a sway to one side or the other. What I'll be looking at is what do we need to try to solve here, and what are we looking at to try to accomplish? And with that, I'd probably ask more questions because I am newer. I'll be able to have probably the same questions a lot of you have and a lot that I have when I watch back-end videos of previous city council meetings where I wish I would have known more about this. And I'm probably going to be the person to ask a little bit more questions because of that, because I'm new. So that's what I'm looking to do in this, and that's honestly why I think people should vote for me, is because I'll be asking more questions. Some of them will probably be silly to members who have been part of this for quite a while, but for me and for others who are moving to this town, probably very beneficial to that point. I am also looking to deliver creative solutions in that. So when we're asking more questions, usually you're able to dive into more things and be able to collaborate a little bit more effectively that way. So that's why I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. TJ?
When making your voting decision, I think that the mayor and council of a community impact your day-to-day life probably more than any political position, in this great country. But you want the process to be easy, and it mostly impacts people, and they get interested when it impacts their front door or their wallet or their day-to-day life. And for one, I want each and every one of you to be curious and make the most educated decision you can. If you came tonight or you're listening tonight online and you've had a preconceived notion of any of the candidates here, I just challenge you to seek to understand all candidates and make sure that you make the most important and educated decision for yourselves. It's ultimately up to all of you. I feel that if I do a good enough job communicating my skills and not only my skill set, but as Barb mentioned earlier, the tenure and commitment to consistency in government. I know Barb mentioned a 4-year tenure, but actually Barb has a longer tenure than the 4-year seat. Other than Barb, in a consistent and consecutive manner, I have actually been the most active person seeking to serve this community over the last 8 years. So I'd like to point that out, that this isn't just a short-term decision for me. This has been a long and calculated and planned effort to serve my community. I wouldn't be running for this position tonight if I didn't think I was the best of your 3 choices. I know that can sound overconfident per se, but I would love for you to reach out to me personally if you have more one-on-one questions that you aren't comfortable answering in this forum. And my personal cell phone number, you'll be able to watch this back, is 605-251-3704. And my commitment of being available for you and confidentially your questions is always on the table. I share that with you tonight, that you can text, call, and I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to spare that time away from my own family and my own business because I want to serve this community. I also have an event on Friday, April 8th at the VFW from 4:30 to 6. If you're interested in attending or inviting people that want to learn more about why I want to be your candidate, I think it's a little bit too much to sum it up in just a 3-minute answer, but I'm available to answer your questions. Collaboration is another thing other than just the skill sets that I've shared with you earlier. I too have actually had lunch with Mayor Tenhaken recently, and we've exchanged texts and calls because I believe that Brandon doesn't need to become Sioux Falls, but we need to collaborate with our neighbors, not just Sioux Falls, but other small communities. Growing up in a town like Brookings, when I was growing up, it was the same size as Brandon is today. And understanding what those leaders have gone through when facing these kind of growing pains that we're going through now, I believe that collaboration is an important part of the role, and I commit that I'll do that for you as your mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, TJ. And Jack?
Well, Courtney, asking questions is okay. I learned in my first 2 years here on the council, almost 2 years, I had a lot to learn as well. And I ask a lot of questions. I said it before, I'm an infrastructure guy. I'm constantly asking questions about why are we doing this and why are we doing it this way. And staff probably thinks, oh, it's not him again. He's going to ask another question. Well, get used to it because I do ask a lot of questions. And I think that's a strong point of mine is being able to take that information from not just staff, but from the public as well. I run on the slogan of a voice of reason. There's a reason for that, because when I meet people, they just want to be heard, and then from there, they want to be treated fairly. I found that at times we have some contentious issues here in town, and people want to be heard, and if we can somehow come to a resolution, I'm always have been in my roles in the past, a consensus builder, and I like to think that's a strong suit of mine. On the railroad, as president, I had numerous departments, and we had some big decisions to make. I'd pull them all in and said, "What do you think, guys? Let me hear it." And from there, somebody had to make a decision at times, and that was me. And with this position, it's a little different because we have 6 of us and the mayor, and collectively, we can hopefully come together with a solid resolution to different issues that come before us. And so I'm asking for your vote, but I think my background will serve the community of Brandon well, and I hope that I can earn your vote. I have 30 seconds left, but I'm going to give it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. All right, our next question. In your view, In your view, what has the city done well in recent years? And we'll start with Barb.
I can't quite get this order right. Okay. I think we've done a lot of things right. In the early years, the first couple of terms, we were laying a lot of groundwork. When Larry Beasley was mayor, we had a lot of things we were trying to get organized so that we could move forward. And I think that through his leadership, we were able to do that. As a business person, government runs way too slow. It just drives you crazy because you have to do the bidding process and all of the studies. But on the other hand, we're spending taxpayer dollars, so I totally understand it. But if I want to make a decision in my business and make a change, I can do it immediately. That doesn't happen in government. So we've been playing catch up over the years. We grew so fast. We were building over 100 homes a year. That has slowed down to 40 to 50. And now last year we did have 100 homes. So we found that we need to work on our infrastructure and do some reconstruction. So we're working on the core. We're working on Rushmore. We're expanding. We're doubling the size of the water treatment plant. We're building a new water tower. We got rid of the sewer lagoons. We updated the pool. We formed a water conservation committee, and I think that's a really great thing for Brandon. That came out of the whole water study, and we have a small set of volunteers that are very passionate about water conservation. We have rebates in place, so if you're going to replace the dishwasher, washing machine, toilet, shower head, some outdoor watering equipment, we have rebates available, and the city council appropriated money for those. And I think that's really important. I think a word of caution on water conservation. It's been very dry. Spring is coming. People are going to hit those sprinklers hard. I encourage you to take it slowly so that we don't get to the point where we've got to start worrying about water capacity. So we have the water treatment plant coming online. That's going to be great. In the past years, when there was a discussion about Brandon's running out of water, that just wasn't true. It just was not true. Our issue was we couldn't push the water fast enough through the water treatment plant. So this add-on is going to take care of that for us for probably the next 20 years. So I think we've done a lot of good things. Of course, there's always a lot more things we'd like to do, but we will continue to prioritize our infrastructure, as Jack had mentioned. We have a CIP list, and we will go from that to see what needs to be done in the future.
All right, thank you, Barb. Courtney.
So this question's pretty, I would say, a little easier for me to answer, but what is awesome about Brandon, or what's been good about Brandon in recent years? I think when I talk to people, it's summed down to three basic things, where it's the school system, it's safe community, it's basic needs, and it's all wrapped up into one package of a suburban, small town feel. That's what most people can agree upon, is we've maintained a status of that in our community for a long time, and that's one of the main reasons, those are the main reasons I moved here and why I chose Brandon. So, thank you.
Thank you, Courtney, and now we'll go to Harry.
What's the city done well?
That, I think that the city has focused on the important things. We knew that we needed a better supply of water. So as Barb mentioned, we've got a plan in place to increase our water processing and our water holding capacity. But I think one of the things we've really done well at over the years is that we've worked well with associations. Back when I was on the city council, say 10 or 12 years ago, the soccer association came in, and at that time they said we were sending 300 kids a week to Sioux Falls to play soccer. And they put together an organization, and they raised a slug of money, and we furnished the land, and they had the money to build soccer fields. And so it's been a great thing for us. Now I understand we have 500 kids participating in soccer. And that was followed by the tennis association. Once again, back when I was on the council before, tennis association came in. They raised $400,000 or $500,000, if I remember right, and we were able to build a terrific tennis complex that the school uses and the city uses, and it's just been a fantastic thing. And then more recently, the baseball association. Man, oh man, the baseball association raised enough money to build one of the actual premier baseball diamonds in the state of South Dakota. There's actually only two others. Augustana has one, and people at Yankton have one that are equal to our baseball facility. And the old saying, if you build it, they will come, and they're really coming. The NSIC is having their tournament there this year, and USF is playing their home games there this year, and so it's just really been a terrific thing. And so I think that how we've worked with the other committees around town has been fantastic. And now we've got the Hockey Association is working to raise money, and there's a new wellness group together that are going to start raising money to build a wellness facility. So we're very, very fortunate to have those things. So I think that another thing that has worked so well is our school system that everybody knows about. I mean, we have the best AA school system in the state. Very proud of them. When people call and ask about coming to Brandon, they've researched it and they know our school system is fantastic. So those are the things that I see that we've done really well at.
Thank you, Harry. And Jack?
Thanks, DJ. You're not mayor yet. You can't control us all yet.
Just improvising.
Thank you. What has Brandon done well? That's easy for me. We all know about the school system, and that's been mentioned many times. And I've said this many times publicly, is what's the other reason people come to Brandon? It's our parks, and Aspen Park is a shining star with FNB Field now. Harry mentioned college teams are playing there because they love it. They know it's a great facility. Can we do more? Absolutely. That parking lot down there is a muddy mess. It needs to be expanded, and eventually we need to pave it, plain and simple. That's going to take some effort, and it may take effort from the associations. It may take a private funding effort as well as the city, but it'll need to be done. Especially when we start hosting these large tournaments, college teams coming into town. We should have some additional revenue to help out with that, and I'm looking forward to driving that cause forward. Expanding Ironwood down into the park. We got a little bit of a start on it last year. We'll do a little bit more this year, and hopefully, cross our fingers, Barb, we get it all connected. We got some challenges with Ironwood. The street assessment is not going to be an easy task for the council. I think it'll take a strong mayor to help us through that process. Eventually, we'll have some other infrastructure needs that we need to address up the northwest corner, annexation with the new school and all. It's going to have to happen. It's just a matter of how we go about it. But we also passed, this last year as a council, we also passed a capital improvement plan, or CIP, that is addressing all of these new infrastructure projects that we've got coming up. Some of them aren't necessarily new, but the funding is in the works, let's just say, to address some of those needs. And that's going to be a working document. We're going to have to review it annually, and we're going to have to make changes to it as our priorities and needs change. And so that's something that we've done well. It started out there. That CIP started was first brought to the city by Mayor Lundberg, and he kind of drove that. He's the financial guy with the school system, so he knew, long-range planning was important. That's something that we have done very, very well, I think, though, and we need to continue to improve that, and that working document of the CIP is going to be our little roadmap going forward.
All right, thank you, Jack. TJ?
That's okay. It'll be all right. So what has the city done well in recent years was the question, and there's so much to be excited about as a Brandon resident. A lot of it's already been mentioned. We've got a great school system. We can't all take credit for that right here, but we've got a great school board and a great business manager, Mr. Lundberg. We are a town that has maintained our unique identity as a small and safe community, and nationwide reputation for that matter, being ranked in the top in many different reports. We've done a fantastic job with our police department, having a safe presence here, despite the challenges and instability in leadership that we have faced. We recently, something that I advocated for when I ran for council about 6 years ago, we secured and made sure to secure the future of our emergency medical services here in Brandon to ensure that response times stay as they should, and I think that was a big win. And as it's been mentioned already, the parks, of course, I challenge us to continue to grow that, but we do have great parks when you drive through some of the other communities, and for those of you that don't know, Barb has led the Parks Committee for many years and done a fantastic job, so thank you for your passion and work there. We faced unprecedented pressures and challenges with the pandemic, criticism from extreme candidates that had been here in the past. We're facing infrastructure needs, and some of those things have been delayed due to years of maybe kicking the can down the road, if you will. But one thing that's for sure about Brandon is we've faced these challenges, and I truly believe that despite all the diversity, some negativity, challenges, We've done it in a positive manner from a leadership team, so I want to thank everybody that's been a part of that. We've had some things change a lot, as I mentioned, in the police department. The chief was a big hit when Dave retired, and we just had a year in place. But now we've overcome that as well, which I think the community's done a great job, and we have one of our very own. So he's not here tonight, but thanks, Chief. We're excited about having him here. And going on 4 mayors in 4 years, with multiple council changes and public challenges, as I mentioned, from the extremists out there. There's nothing better that we've done but come together as a leadership team and those folks in the community that remain positive despite all of those challenges. And I'm just proud to be here. I'm proud to be part of Brandon, and I am proud of those successes of our leadership team.
All right, thank you, TJ. And our next question, are there areas you feel the city can improve? And we'll begin with Courtney, and then we'll go to Harry.
Yes, so areas to improve. I think this one was said already, but communication and transparency. I think it's all about the right time, the right place, and it needs to be in an avenue that's a two-way street. So not just being told information, but also being able to share communication back. From there, it's being able to hear what's being said. So as a new individual joining the community, it was really hard hearing city council meetings. I'm very glad to see that it's live streaming. So thanks for all of you live streaming tonight. I think that's a really big opportunity that can be taken for future city council meetings. Getting people involved in the process up in front and early would make a big difference to those communication and transparency processes too. And if it's a smaller group that's being impacted, it's getting in front of them, having a face-to-face conversation with them. I would hate to hear news through a friend or through a friend of a friend or through a friend of a friend of a friend's neighbor, or even hearing about it on social media before I hear about it for some things that may be impacting me personally. And then providing information in advance. It's getting down to a comfort level to our citizens and through people who live here. So it's meeting them where they're at and being able to communicate that way to them. And then it's matching communication styles across generations. We have young individuals. We have people who are constantly on their phone, making sure we're getting things that way. We also have people who like to just sit down and read something so tangible in front of them. So it's being able to meet and match those communication styles. The other thing I also would strongly consider in areas of improvement or potentially looking at term limits on city council members. And why I say that is because it promotes ideas, it brings new individuals to join and to sit up here, and also brings creative thought processes to that. It empowers citizens to also know when term limits are coming or approaching. It's sad when we don't have anyone that wants to step into a city council position. So, in my opinion, empowering and being able to bring them along, knowing that there's an end to a term limit, will also help with succession planning and bringing those people along in that process and getting them engaged and getting them upbeat or up to beat on how things are being currently ran. It also encourages engagement through that process. So engaging individuals on what do I need to do to get into that type of position earlier than now going through it after we don't have individuals that want to sit in those positions or have a desire because they don't know about the positions. So those would be the things I would focus on improving. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Harry?
Are always some things that you could improve on, especially if we use hindsight. That's a wonderful thing. But I'm not interested really in throwing anybody under the bus. I think that overall we have done a terrific job for the last 10 or 15 years in Brandon. I think that, as I look at the decisions that have been made by the council, there may have been a time or two when I wouldn't have voted the way the council voted, but not on major issues in my opinion. And so I think overall we've done a terrific job. I do believe that we've also worked well with the school, but we need to continue to do that. It is so important for the city of Brandon and the school system to work closely together. I believe that education is the silver bullet when it comes to raising families and educating our children. And I believe that our administrators and our teachers in Brandon are just absolutely terrific. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Links Way. I'm sure Larry is, but the Links Way is to be respectful, to be responsible, to be safe, to be kind, and to be an active learner. And I think that it's not just good for the school system to have that. You know, our teachers and our administrators, it's not just a slogan with them. I mean, they mean it and they live by it. And so we're very, very fortunate to have that going for us. I also mentioned that, you know, I think we need to continue to have a good working relationship with Sioux Falls. I think that that's very important for us. And I think that we'll continue to do that. There isn't any reason why we wouldn't. There is one other thing that I think that we should consider in the future. I don't know if it's something that we can afford, but I've heard other people tonight talk about better communication. And I think it's time for us to look at the potential to have a director of communication that works with maybe a joint employee between the school and the city to constantly keep the positive news out there about who we are and what we're doing. And so I think that's something that I would say that we should look at, and if we could figure out how to work with the school system on it, maybe even the chamber could participate some. I think that would be a really good thing. So those are the things that I think. Nothing all that serious wrong, but we can always do better.
All right, thank you, Harry. And Jack?
All right, got the microphone working this time. So, communication, we've heard that a lot tonight, and I hear everyone hear this one?
Oh, Harry's is on.
All right, now we got a microphone. And a lost train of thought here. Okay, Harry. You're not mayor yet. I told TJ that too. Anyway, what can we improve on? We've talked about communication a lot here this evening. One thing that the city has done, I think, rather well, they've got the text messaging system. That's been very helpful, I think, on lawn watering issues, on snow removal. It's been informative for the core reconstruction, letting people know what's happening. I think we can improve on that, do more with it, address other areas. For instance, conditional use permits, they could be on there, informing people that are affected by a possible new conditional use on a business, a local business. Rezoning applications, I think that's another one area where we could improve our communications. We've had a number of people that have come into the council meeting that we didn't know that there was this, or they heard about it late. Well, we can improve on that, I think. So improving those communications, we need to improve those communications between the city and the council and residents. We also need to communicate better between administration, council, planning, and zoning. The decisions made by some of those other boards and commissions have a ripple effect on the community and some of the residents. And so we've had some contentious debates because something was rezoned or a new ordinance came into play. And we worked through it, but it wasn't always an easy thing. So I think communication would help to resolve some of those issues. Let's put it that way. You know, other areas that we can improve on. I wouldn't specifically say a particular program. I think we have some infrastructure needs that we're addressing, and to continue to invest. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think we need to continue to invest in some of those areas. We have a couple rather big challenges. Redwood and Chestnut area. The new school was mentioned earlier too. That's going to be a big challenge. Ironwood street assessments and that expansion is going to be a big one. And also a lot of talk about the expansion of Aspen Park and other facilities. The 2 or 3 that have been mentioned are hockey, soccer, wellness. All of those are going to potentially are good projects, and we can work with those entities to build and improve that what they're looking to do at least. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. TJ?
You know, I've said before, Brandon's a great community with a unique identity of being one of the best places to live in the nation. That said, we always have to strive to improve. If we aren't taking feedback from our residents, from experts, listening to the voters, or not making an absolute priority to improve to be the best that we can for our residents and the best in the state, then we aren't reaching high enough. And we may or may not have the right leadership in place to set the high enough expectations. My expectations as mayor in an influential position will be nothing but the best for you, for your family, for my kids, for my family, for your retirement, for your business, and for any prospective resident or business that may be thinking about joining our thriving community. And I intend to lead in that prospective way. Some specific commitments and things that I think we could adjust and improve on. Communication has already come up. Not everyone has the time to come to council meetings while working, enjoying life, raising families, being in sports, volunteering, etc. Council meetings are intimidating for some, public speaking. It's not always the residents' responsibility to have to go out and show up at a meeting. If everybody in Brandon showed up tonight, we'd have a line all the way to Sioux Falls. But instead, I think it's my responsibility and our responsibility as leadership to making sure that we are making information easily accessible to you. One example that I have as an idea would be a mayor minutes, if you will. I think it needs to come from an official, if you want to call it POTUS, but mayor page that passes on with the next candidate that assumes that position. But I'd love to see like a mayor minutes. You know, technology is a little scary. But not everybody gets their news from traditional sources, and I think that rather than shying away from those sources, we should embrace those sources, get ahead of the communication on all those platforms so that the message is always positive and that communication is proactive so that we can beat and get ahead of some of those negativity things that sneak up on you in those platforms. Twitter, YouTube, and even TikTok, if you've ever heard of it. I'd talk way too much for TikTok. You get a very short amount of time. But another thing would be a talent plan that involves expanding, and Harry had already said it, but expanding our role in communication within our city staff and having a specific role or responsibility assigned to somebody within our plan to help encourage and grow communication. Strategic planning, but just not strategic planning, execution. You know, we had an infrastructure study 10 years ago or so, and it's 200 and some pages, or well over 100. And I believe it's still available on the city site. We paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for that study. We then, around 5 or 10 years later, paid a few $100,000 to have that same study updated. When you look back at the original study, there was around half of the recommendations that were executed. So execution is something that I believe, and accountability that needs to be brought to the role. And I can bring that to our team.
All right. Thank you, TJ. And Barb?
This has been mentioned before, but I think our biggest challenge is communication with our residents. And Jack mentioned the Textedly program. I like that. I'm not very good technology-wise, but I can handle Textedly. I would ask everyone to please subscribe to the Brandon Valley Journal. Jill and her staff do an excellent job. They're always here at the meetings. They report what's happened at the meetings, and you can really get a sense of what's going on. We have a Facebook page that you can follow from the city. We put information in our utility bills. So we're trying to cover different ways that people access information. Courtney mentioned the audio of the meetings. We have been talking about improving our system. So I think that that's a really good comment. But, you know, if you really want to know what's going on, call us. So I'm going to share a story. Dan, am I an intimidating person? I don't think I'm very intimidating. Call me. So I had a young man call, and he's probably early 30s. He's a son of people we know from school. And he said, Barb, I just would like to know what is the story on this particular issue. I'm hearing this and I'm hearing this. And he honestly just called me to get the facts. And I thought that was so refreshing. Rather than going on social media and making assumptions, et cetera, he actually called me. We talked it through. I don't know that he agreed with me, but I gave him what I felt was the truth. And then when I saw his mom the next time, I really congratulated her, because I think that maybe we do a lot on email, and you know how email can go, and this, I don't even know how to do Twitter, all of this stuff. Just call us. Our contact information is on the city website, or call the city staff to get the real story. And finally, I think in the communication space, we need to just everybody give each other a little grace. I think we've lost that in our societies to some extent. I think our filters have come off. And as a grandparent, I call myself Baba instead of Grandma. I'm a Baba. And we have to teach our children and our grandchildren to give each other a little grace. So I would ask that when you're dealing with us and you come up to the lectern and you have a concern, just say, you know, I have a question about this, rather than, I don't agree, or, you can phrase things in a manner that makes it a little bit more comfortable for everybody involved. So we'll keep working on the communication. I know that is always something that can be worked on, and we will continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Our next question, and we'll start with TJ. In recent weeks, the council met to discuss the need for a new or improved city hall/police department. They agreed to hire ISG to evaluate the current structure to determine if the building is structurally sound and can be added onto or remodeled. What are your thoughts on this topic?
I thought a lot about this, as there's many small towns around us that have a staple, if you will, of a great-looking community center, city hall, and we have to budget for that appropriately, and maybe catching up a little bit right now, but it is something that's going to be important. Specifically, on the question around ISG, well-known engineering firm, great reputation. One thing that I would ask when I think about this topic is, did we take a big enough look at this from a scope perspective so that we don't spend the same money again multiple times addressing an issue? And what I mean by that is we're looking at the structural soundness to see if we could build onto this facility. But could we have included, or did we think about including in that evaluation when we were thinking of hiring ISG, why don't we ask for additional recommendations if it's not structurally sound, so that we don't end up paying for an entirely different contract if we do or do not find out that this facility is structurally sound or could be or could not be built onto. We need to look at it from a bigger perspective and a bigger picture. Ask for this potential solutions. Maybe here's a A if we build on, a B if we build elsewhere, a C, kind of a silver, gold, platinum, if you will. And it's just an example of a quick decision to look at one thing, I believe, but maybe we're not looking at those bigger pictures. And I think that's something that I would challenge us all to do in the leadership role. And looking at similar communities around us and asking them when they face these challenges, what did they do? Because that can come as free advice when you collaborate with your neighbors, because many communities have faced some of these exact challenges and have already gone through it. And we may be able to seek an understanding of what they've faced so that we make the right decision when we hire a project and spend your money on such studies. We'll need it, within a few years, possibly just because of our growth, and to house the correct amount of officers and the right amount of city staff that we're going to need as we grow to 15 and 20,000 people. One thing that I plan to unveil at my event on the 8th at the VFW from 4:30 to 6 is an outline/plan of like a 2030 perspective to create kind of a vision of things that we could look at the bigger picture of that'll shape our future in our community. And I invite you to come to that event. I'll be sharing it online, but if you'd like to hear it and see it in person, I'll be unveiling that at our event. And this was a perfect example of one of those projects that we may have been able to look at the bigger picture, so we don't spend multiple times on a similar subject. So thank you.
Thank you, TJ. Jack?
Okay, I'm going to just mention something, something that the city does great at, and something we do are rather poor at, and that's the same thing: studies. We've done numerous studies after studies after studies. Some have been really, really good, but now, for instance, this building study again, we're kind of rehashing some of the old things that were done in a previous study. So studies are good to give you information, but you have to be able to use them as well. And now, concerning this building itself, I've been, when I first got on the council, there was a lot of discussion about building a new one, new facility somewhere. Possibly even raising this building and then, building it from here. I was one of the proponents of, can't we look at renovation? Doesn't that make sense to at least look at? And so that is where some of this new study came about, is looking at the different options. And I think if we can have a couple of options, I think it'll do us well. I think we all agree that we do need a new facility for City Hall and the police department. Is this the right building? I can't say for sure right now. Is it the right location? It's a good location, but is it going to work for 5, 10, maybe even 20 years or more in the future? We shall see. And I'm hoping that this process will get us down the road of peace. It's going to take some money to do whatever we end up doing. And we as the council and as mayor, we're going to have to work towards getting that in our CIP. We've got some, let's say a placeholder in the CIP for it, but there's no hard dollars committed yet. So I'm hoping that we can do something with that, though.
All right, thank you, Jack. Harry?
Well, I believe that we basically pretty much outgrown our current facility, and I think we need to do something. I don't know exactly what the right answer is. It'd be interesting to see what the study comes up with. From some folks that I've talked to that are in the building business, it seems like there's maybe not a lot of hope to rejuvenate this facility. So we'll just have to wait and see. Back when I was on city council, a quick story, I heard that First National Bank was going to build a new facility. And so I looked up Bill Baker and asked him if the First National Bank wouldn't mind donating their bank to the city of Brandon. And he informed me that George Goulson beat me to the punch. He said that George had talked to him already a couple of years before that, and they had already decided to donate it to the school. So it wasn't like a total loss. I'm glad the school got it. And but anyway, my gut feel is that we're going to have to do something, and we need to have reasonably good working conditions for our employees. And if you've ever been to see our finance officer, she has an office about the size of our, a little bit bigger than our walk-in closet, but not much. And so we'll see what the budget says and what the study says. I think for people that know us, Barb and I are pretty liberal with our own money, but we're pretty conservative with other people's money. And so we have to make sure that it's something that we need and that we can afford.
Thank you, Harry. Barb?
So we've been tossing this around for a number of years. Do we stay where we're at and destroy the building, remodel? Do we try to get somebody to build a building and we lease it? I understand that's what the post office does. They don't own their own buildings. They are all built and then they lease them back. So that's been thrown out there. So just to give you a little history on our city hall, the original building next door was a bank. The vault is still there. It was built in 1917. So my question for ISG is what is that foundation like? Because, we've got to have a strong foundation. Now, in those days, they built stuff to last. So it's possible that it is still good. I don't know. And then where Brian and Christina's offices are, that was added on in 53. Now, that is even before my time. Then the police department, the north side, was added on in 97. And our population at that time was 5,600. We're at 11,000 now. And then the back area where the zoning department was added on in 03. So we've got some age on, just everything. This was originally our fire hall, built in 58, remodeled in 07, when we had a population of 8,500. So these buildings probably don't owe us anything. We've got a lot of issues with them, but I'm interested to see what ISG says, and I agree with Jack. We get tired of the studies, but some of this stuff we just don't know without doing the study. But my other concern is our public works facilities. Raleigh and his crew are running stuff out of 3 different buildings. They're not in good shape. And is that a bigger priority than working on City Hall? I don't know that answer. We've taken tours of those facilities, and I'm a farm girl, but I was always a terrible backer-upper. I could never back up. Well, they have these bays, and they have to back the snowplows into the bays. And those guys certainly are experts at that. But they have to tilt the snowplows just so to get them into the bays because our bays are too small. And so just small inconveniences like that could make their life a lot easier. And those are people that are out in the middle of the night plowing 30 miles of roads when we have a snowstorm. They've had a pretty easy season this year, but some years are pretty rough, as we all know. So I'm going to be interested to see what ISG says about City Hall, but I'm also going to be interested to see what we need to do about our public works buildings. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Barb. Courtney?
So I'm a big individual on obviously having safe work environments. I think that it also encourages productive work when you have a working structural building to be in. I do think there's creative solutions here that could be brought forward, though. We have a lot of priorities within Brandon, and I also want to keep in mind that the needs of our citizens. So the basic quality of life needs, water, sewer, streets. But I do think there's an emphasis that needs to be placed here on our police department. Our safety doesn't happen here by accident. I appreciate first responders and what they bring to the communities. There needs to be that emphasis on the police department. It's been mentioned our city's growing and that safety doesn't happen just by accident. We're growing very quickly. We need to be proactive with that planning and being able to see what's missing today and what do we need to be able to make sure we're planning effectively for and solve for that. And then build plans to build out for the future. So, things that could be brought up is obviously renovating. So you renovate buildings, you make them efficient for what you're trying to solve for. leasing, renting, and if you're leasing or renting within the community, making sure it's accessible for citizens to still be able to get to for local needs. Addition, so maybe it's a phased approach to this. Maybe it's we build and then it's moving people around, and I know that's not super convenient, but if we can span that out over time, that may be more resourceful for our community too. And honestly, we talk about building, but maybe it's not building for, maybe it's more so building for our police department, and then making sure we still have the needs that we have for our city workers too. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Now we have some questions that have been brought to us through Facebook Live or anything like that. So this question is only for the mayor candidates. The question is, and we'll begin with TJ. The mayor position is for a 1-year term. What positive steps can you possibly take to make a meaningful difference to improve the stigma that seems to appear between city government and its citizens?
Well, thank you for asking that question. This particular election may only account for a 1-year term, but as I stated before, to whomever asked that question and to everybody here or listening tonight or anybody that intends to vote, I definitely plan and have committed already to serving, if you'll have me, a minimum of 10 years in this capacity to help create consistency. Because although the question asks, what can we do in a 1-year term, the real obvious opportunity is that we do need consistency and vision over the next 10 years to successfully navigate our future. In the 1-year term, however, I'd like to ask a lot of questions, understand our current staff and skill sets, improve communication through some of the things that I mentioned earlier, and at least the CIP process was a step in the right direction, as I've been talking about strategic planning for the last 8 years that I've been intending to try to serve our community. But building on that and ensuring that we have checks and balances along the way, whether we call it CIP or strategic planning, to ensure that we have stepping stones and milestones to ensure we're executing those plans. And I do believe it's feasible to create a staffing plan for our next 5, 10, and 20 years of growth. That will mold and change as we grow as a community, but that is something that we should address right now, because we're going to ask too much of some of our city staff, and as mentioned, our police department, even our city leadership team. We need to have backup plans, succession plans, and growth plans to support those roles, and we should be looking at that right now. And I think that that's something that's easily achievable in the next year, just within this part of what I hope to be a long-term tenure as your mayor.
Thank you, TJ. And Jack?
Okay, thanks for the question. I think that's a great question. Because it seems as though, 1 year, well, yeah, what can you do? Well, I think a good leader in this position, directing the communication. We've talked a lot about that, and it's an important factor in having a community that is a community, not just a town that's fighting against one another, east and west and whatever, left and right and R&D and all this. One good thing that I've mentioned this when I've been out and talking to people, is one good thing, the one thing that I like about our council and running for mayor is the fact that it is a nonpartisan position. I don't care if you're an R or a D. We haven't had those national politics issues here, and I think that's a great thing. Thankfully, we have not had to go down that road. We've had some contentious issues, and that's what some of the issues or some of the things that in a 1-year term we can work on. We can work through those as they come up. They're going to continue to come up. But I think one of the things that a 1-year mayor can work on is that communication. We've heard a lot about it, and And my pledge is to, it's a broad subject, but improve our communication from the council and the mayor to the residents. Jill, I think you guys can help with the paper in getting a message out. And I'm looking forward to that possibility of leading us for a year. And then who knows after that. But I don't think any of us, I know TJ, you've mentioned your 10-year commitment. That's admirable. But a lot of things can happen in a year or in 5 years. And I think that commitment is difficult for most of us to say categorically that I'll be here for 10 years. Too many things can happen.
All right, thank you, Jack. Harry?
What can a person do in the next year? And I would say basically, provide positive leadership. I think that's kind of what it's all about. I think that we continue to hire the best people and we let them do their jobs. We don't try to micromanage. We do everything we can to help our good employees be successful. I think that the mayor needs to be accessible, I think, to employees and to people that live here in Brandon. I think that we need to have positive communication. I heard a saying once that you should never swing at a pitch in the dirt where social media is concerned. And that's really hard to do. I mean, I was at a meeting with Dr. Larson from the school one day at the chamber office, and he made a comment about, you cannot manage the unmanageable. And social media is not manageable. And so you really should try not to focus too much attention on it because it just burns up your time and energy. And so I think we have to have positive communication and don't swing at too many pitches in the dirt.
All right, thank you, Harry. Okay, what I understand is now these next are for all of the candidates, Jill? Okay. So this next question, we will go ahead and we'll go back to TJ, start with the first question here. The city of Brandon has put us high priority on installing sidewalks. Do you support this decision?
Well, thank you for whoever asked this question. And it's a pretty touchy subject in this core area. And I will tell you that I have a very clear stance on this. As a city and a growing community, we do need accessibility. There's kids that walk in the street downtown. That said, when we look at the bigger picture, and I've talked about the bigger picture many times tonight, we have a laundry list of infrastructure needs in this community. I was just down on 6th Avenue tonight as somebody came to ask me to put up a sign, and we talked about sidewalks. Meanwhile, I was standing in a large pothole in the street. So what I would tell you is in our long-term plan, we need accessibility. That said, I don't think it needed to happen today when you prioritize the fact that we have sewer mains that need replaced. We have infrastructure needs from a water capacity with our water treatment plant coming on and our water tower coming on. Our general fund approximately increased somewhere from around $9 million a year to $29 million a year in spending. So do I think that that project was the top of the priority list for absolutely today? No. And I have some supporters that are here in the audience that support me up and down and sideways. And that was one of their biggest concerns, is losing so much of their yard. But they still stand behind me today, even though I clearly tell them, as I'll always be transparent as your mayor, that yes, it's something we need long term. But on the laundry list of priorities when spending your tax dollars, ironically, I stood in that pothole tonight, and it just proved my point that we need to prioritize, and we're not going to be able to do every single thing at once. And I think that that was a little further down the list, and we could gather a little bit more feedback from our community as it just kind of rolled out. And a lot of residents expressed concern, and it created that adversity and some of the outcries on the different platforms and things. And I do think we could have led up to it with a lot more strategy and coffee talks, community forums, feedback from our community on what they desire. Meanwhile, fix those potholes, helped with the infrastructure needs, and planned for some of the growth that's happening in every direction in our community, except for where we're blocked by the interstate in some areas. So the answer is clear. Long-term accessibility is important, but it wasn't. I don't believe it should have been a priority today with all of our other needs and the tax dollars that we're spending out of your own pocket.
Thank you, TJ. Jack?
Well, the decision to install sidewalks in the core area was before my time. That being said, I feel that it was well overdue. I wish we could turn back the clock 20 years ago and say, okay, or 30 years ago, for instance, in the core, 40 maybe. I'm not sure when we would go back that far, but and if we're using hindsight, we should have said then we need sidewalks in these areas. But we didn't do it, and that's, you can't blame us on the council today. You can't blame previous. The circumstances were different, and the community was different as well. But I do think that sidewalks are needed. Personally, I like the wider sidewalks, not down in the core, but where we're expanding into new areas. And eventually we'll have a cohesive combined use trail, let's call it, walking, biking trail that's going to connect the entire community. But that's down the road a piece, but we're working towards that goal. But for the core area and some of the other areas, yes, I think installing the sidewalks is the right decision.
All right, thank you, Jack. Harry?
Wasn't that a yes or no question? What was the question again?
The city of Brandon has put a high priority on installing sidewalks. Do you support this decision?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you, Harry. And Barb?
Yes, I feel strongly that sidewalks are needed. In the new developments, we require the developers to put in sidewalks. In the reconstructed areas, we're putting in sidewalks. The city is covering the cost of that. These roads are going to be around for 40 years. I think our residents 10 years down the road would wonder why we don't have sidewalks when we're trying to stress walkability and health and, all that kind of thing for our young people and safety. So yes, I am firmly in the sidewalk corner, and I know there are many that are not. So on that note, we'll just have to agree to disagree.
Thank you, Barb. Courtney?
So sidewalks to me are safety things. My kid's going to be learning how to ride a bike soon. So do I want him riding in the street or on a sidewalk? So to me, it's all about the right place at the right time and where that fits in to the community. But I think the important part here is when. It's communicating when they can expect a sidewalk. It's communicating how that's going to happen. So to me, yes, I would say sidewalks are important for a lot of our young children growing up in this community, but it's a matter of when, right place, right time, and then communicating that effectively on when they can expect it. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. All right, our next question, we'll begin with Jack. With the upcoming improvements to the water treatment plant, what are your thoughts on adding an RO system for softening?
Well, I hate to say this, but it's going to be expensive to do so. We don't know the numbers on it yet. That's an alternative bid that'll go out. And that's going to be a tough decision for the council to go through. And we have strong feelings from the public one way or another. And quite frankly, I'm not sure which way I lean. Just looking at my water at home, yeah, I think an RO system would be great. is it worth it at the cost that it's going to be for the city? That for me right now is hard to say. So I'm still waiting to hear some of the numbers when we get the bids, when we get the final plan submitted, and then the numbers come back in.
Right, thank you, Jack. Harry?
Yeah, like Jack, I think we need to find out. Obviously, it would be nice to have. I think the questions are the cost, and is there a conservation issue of how much more water it takes to produce a gallon of RO water. So I think it's the two things. I think it's a conservation issue and what it's going to cost. So.
Thank you, Harry. And Barb?
I would just echo what they said. We'll just have to wait and see what the cost is and if it's going to be worthwhile for our residents and what it's going to do to their rates.
All right, thank you, Barb. Courtney?
I think I'm like the rest of everyone up here. I think it'd be interesting to get the numbers back and the data before making a definitive decision.
Thanks, Courtney. TJ?
I would have to agree that evaluating the overall cost and quantity availability of our current supply will be really important before making the final decision. That being said, looking at the bigger picture, I do think that there's additional things that we can offer our residents in the interim while we make these decisions. We could create rebate programs that help pay for water softeners in homes. We can create rebate programs that help pay for RO systems for drinking water. There are things that we can do if we find that the cost versus ROI for our residents, well-being and quality of life are too high, considering we currently do have pretty high water rates. And as Barb said, what it might cost us monthly, whether it comes from there or another avenue. There's plenty of other creative programs that can help bring this into people's homes on a smaller scale with incentives.
All right, thank you, TJ. We will go to our next question. So we'll begin with Harry. What do you feel the biggest impact Brandon is known for?
Well, I think we've discussed it a lot already tonight. I think Brandon's known for being a pleasant place to live, a great place to raise your family. I think it's known for outstanding education. And of course, I'm kind of a sports fan, so it's also known for having great sports teams. But all of our extracurricular things are terrific at Brandon. So those are the things I think that we're most noted for.
Thank you, Harry. Barb?
I think Courtney addressed it earlier and probably a couple other people. Number one, safety. We have an excellent police department, so we can feel safe for our children. In a town our size, it's unusual that we still are able to have a volunteer fire department, and I think that's a really special thing for us. Those people dedicate, I think they meet every week, and do all sorts of training, and their employers allow them to come on a call when one of us needs help. I've had their assistance in the past. I know that they have dueling pianos coming out soon, and if you can't go to support them there, send them a donation. They do the pancake breakfast. They do a wonderful job with that. They're great pancakes. So we have a wonderful volunteer fire department, and I think we're pretty progressive. Have we ever turned down a school bond issue? I don't think so, not at least in my limited history. And other towns around Sioux Falls have. And so I think we're progressive. Our people understand how important our school district is and that we need to support them. And so I think we're well known as a safe, progressive community with some really good sports, band, debate, drama, all kinds of extracurricular activities for our kids.
Thank you, Barb. Courtney?
So I think one thing for me, the impact is we're able to draw people in. I think that's pretty amazing. We're able to, not only when we have family here or friends, I take my family out to here in Brandon too. So I actually took my mom out to the drop the other day, and she's like, I don't even know what this is, and this is amazing. So it's cultivating a culture like that, and I think that's the impact that we make, is the culture that we're building. People want to move here. The city's growing. I don't need to say anything more than the numbers. We're growing. It's obvious. So the impact that I think people make is the culture that we're developing here. I would also say that, well, actually, I'm going to stop there. That's good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Courtney. And then, TJ.
Thank you. It's already been said, but schools, parks and recreation, the safety. I joked some time ago about the reputation Brandon used to have if he just went about 4.5 miles over the speed limit. But I joke about that, and I joke with retired Chief Cole, but frankly, it's a staple of safety in our community. I mean, don't speed through here. Don't interrupt our neighborhoods. Don't take advantage of our unlocked front doors or car doors because we'll be watching you. So those are things that I think we're well known for, and that may be a joke, but it's a joke that I'm proud of when people coming from out of town wonder how safe it is here. All being said, we need to continue to challenge ourselves to build on those staples and continue to reach for the highest possible expectation we can so we can be known and be proud of even more.
Thank you, TJ. Jack?
Well, it's been said numerous times, and I'll just reiterate again. We've had a great school system, great school sports system, goes way back to football championships and basketball and wrestling and track championships. We're known for that type of thing in our community. And then, our baseball association and softball associations and a couple of the other associations are doing a great job. They draw a lot of people to our community with tournaments, and I think those two things, the school system and our park system, Aspen Park, is a jewel down there, and I think those are the things that draw people here. I said it before, once we get them here, we can keep them. We can get them back. And people know the type of community we are, and we all in this room are very proud of the community that we live in.
Thank you, Jack. This next question is our last question that we've received online, and we will start with Barb, and we'll go to Courtney, and then over to Harry. All right. Many years ago, there was a group of Brandon residents, including some council members, who wanted to see the city administrator gone as they did not agree with his views on managing the day-to-day operations. Are any of you willing to state if you back our current administration, or will you attempt to have some current employees removed, even if they are doing what is best for our community versus what you personally want them to do? We'll start with Barb.
Well, I have a great working relationship with our staff. They spend hours taking care of our residents, and my memory's not as good as it once was, and a lot of times I've got to look over at Brian or Christina and say, yeah, what was that number? And they can just rattle it off. And our public works people and our police department and our parks people, I think that's a really unfortunate question that we even have to ask that. I'm here to support our staff, and if we feel that there is something going awry, then that is a council decision to have a discussion with our city administrator, and then it falls down the line. We are not here to micromanage our staff. Now, if there's an issue with the city administrator, of course, we would meet with him and our legal counsel. But I don't have any sense of that at this point. I have no interest in getting into that. I support our city staff.
Thank you, Barb. Courtney?
So I think in human resources, it's about a perception. So sometimes it's getting to the root of that perception and helping to solve those things. In employee relations, we have to make difficult decisions. And when we do those types of things, we ask a lot of questions. So we ask, how do you feel about this? What is going on here? And like I said, it's usually a root problem that is a perception that needs to be answered. So that's my opinion on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. Harry?
I believe that we have a terrific staff. Firmly believe that our staff does a great job. I think they're very dedicated. Are they always right? Probably not. Is there a time or two when they haven't followed up with somebody that called them and they missed it? I guess we're all human, but I overall believe that we have a terrific staff.
Thank you, Harry. Jack?
Courtney, you touched on this a little bit, and I'm sure you'll agree, at being an HR person, that as much as I respect the question, I don't think this is the format to be discussing personnel issues. However, the mayor's job coming up, even if it's for a year or longer, is to help improve the communication between city staff and the council, and between city staff and the residents. And so I respectfully not going to answer that question directly, but I do think that communication can be improved, and I think that's probably where a lot of this angst comes from, is just that lack of communication, and especially nowadays, that abundance of misinformation that's out there. We all saw that during the early stages of the pandemic, and as I said before, I don't want to get into national politics, but that's where a lot of our problems started, was misinformation. And to eliminate that, that's going to be difficult, but what we can do is combat it with more information instead of misinformation. So that would be my response.
Thank you, Jack. TJ?
Well, first of all, it was brought up earlier, and I think the first question about the perception of an adverse relationship between city government and the staff. And, I'll tell you this, that particular group of individuals were highly toxic for our community, threw a lot of stones. And, I wonder how many people thought of this as I've talked about talent plans and supporting our staff. What if Brian would have walked out on us? I mean, right now we have no contingency plan. So, we need to think hard about talent decisions and supporting our city staff, because I know that although I agree with Jack that this may not be the proper venue to discuss actual actions and performance, I think we really need to think about how we support our city staff, and it's appropriate to say, there's plenty of staff that could have walked out on us under that negativity and criticism, and that would have just set us back. So, if I were in the mayor position, my first thing to do is learn. There's perception, but I believe you need to learn first, one-on-one, firsthand. Inquire, question, create plans together, empower your staff, make sure that they have the tools they need to effectively execute those plans, and sometimes they may be overstretched. Maybe they don't have the right structure as we're growing so fast. After we've put those things in place, we praise in public and coach in a private setting and make those tough decisions if necessary. But ultimately, a talent plan is more than just making a change of one individual. You can't chase the process. I learned this in my years of retail career. At the end of the day, it does come down to the people, but it's not always just one person. Sometimes it's that we have not done our job empowering, supporting, and making sure that they have the tools, talent, and support structure within their role or the organizational chart. As we've grown so fast, we've only added a couple of positions, at least within this building, a little bit different outside. But I guess that's my answer. We should be careful when we throw stones because, not a lot. I want that to be an attractive position. Should any of our staff ever decide to retire, I'd like to see a line of applicants, not people asking, oh, why in the heck would somebody want to do that job because they've seen all that negativity. Instead, I want to attract and make those positions that are very attractive for folks to line up to if we ever face change.
All right, thank you. We now will open the floor to questions from those in attendance. Oh. All right. Okay. So, we will go ahead and have closing statements. This will be for 2 minutes, is that correct? 2 minutes for each candidate, and we will go ahead and start with TJ.
Well, thanks for everybody who's tuned in and attended tonight. Thank you, Carmen, Jill, Rachel, and the city staff, everybody who contributed to making this possible. I love these forums, and I love the engagement. As my inspirations to contribute to my community and hopefully become your mayor, I'll continue to say, and I've said it before, I'm making a commitment to you tonight for consistency if you'll have me. And I know we can't predict the future. I could be hit by a bus in a pothole tomorrow. But I think that the residents would understand if those circumstances came up. But I still have yet to hear tonight somebody to commit to more than the one-year term. And we need that commitment. Much more than a one-year term if you're capable physically or family or emotionally outside of extreme circumstances, which I know the residents would understand. It's great to see 3 candidates at this event. I wish there were 10. I wish we didn't have enough room or enough time to have this forum and had to do it 2 or 3 nights because I want these, as I mentioned with the talent plans, to be attractive positions. I want to establish a vision for our future and a goal for 5, 10, and 15, and 20 years and chase those goals and raise expectations every day and challenge people to be their best at their highest possible development level, and not just status quo of where you are today. How do you challenge them to do a little more and inspire them to do so? I want to efficiently fund effective public services, talent plans, public works, and again, have a line at the door for openings in those positions. Police, ambulance, fire, city staff, parks, etc. are expectations of mine. I don't see those as expenses. I actually see those and any that would challenge or consider regressive steps such as abolishing any shut services as a disservice to our residents. Instead, I look at these services and facilities as an investment in my constituents' health, well-being, and quality of life. I'll advocate to fund these services in a way to continue to ensure that your loved one is facing a medical emergency, they'll have a chance to live with a quick response time. If their home is at risk, their children or any other thing is at risk of safety, then the Brandon Police Department will be staffed, trained, prepared, equipped, and trusted to react with urgency in the most appropriate response method necessary to ensure we're safe and continue that reputation here. And I make that promise to you tonight, period.
Thank you, TJ. Jack?
One thing that I want to say to everyone in the community is we want to hear from you directly. And one of the best ways to do that, there's 2 or 3 different ways, quite frankly, that you can do that. Send us an email. We're on the websites. We're all have a similar email. Feel free to do that. Our telephone numbers are listed on the website as well. And you can call or text to our numbers. They're all cell phone numbers, so that can be easy to do so. Reach out. But most importantly, if you got a concern, if there's something that comes up in your area and you feel strongly about it, please come down to our council meeting and voice your concerns. I encourage public input and invite everyone to contact your council person and or come to a meeting. And I think this is important that we hear some of this fringe stuff going on about restricting people at public meetings. I think that's against everything that I believe in as a civil servant in this case. If you're here, you need to be heard, you need to be respected by the mayor, the council, staff, and conversely, when you do come up to the microphone and speak, we've had issues in the past and have not been, that's the bad side sometimes I've seen here. There can be some name calling. The mayor, one of his jobs is to control the meeting, and I feel that that public input is absolutely important. We need to hear from you, and I encourage everyone to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Harry?
I'd also like to thank the Chamber and the Journal and everybody involved for hosting this event and organizing it. I mentioned once today that I think the best indication of future performance is past performance. And with that, I would say that my public service record is that I've been the past president of the Brandon Valley Boosters Club. I've been the past chair of the Chamber of Commerce. I've been the past president of Brandon City Council. I was a founding board member and past chair of the Brandon Community Foundation. I'm a member of the member advisory board for Sioux Valley Electric. I'm past human resource lead for Brandon Lutheran Church. I'm a board member for the Ed Paul Zine Fund, and I'm one of the founders of the Lynx TV broadcast. And so I guess that I would say that my track record of public service is speaks for itself. I believe that leadership is showing up. I think that you don't have to necessarily be the person in charge to be a good leader. I think you have to show up. And thanks to all of you for showing up tonight. I sincerely appreciate it. I appreciate everybody that has stepped up and offer themselves to run for office. I think that's terrific. We have a great community. And I would close by saying that I'm ready, willing, and able to be your mayor, and I'd appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Harry. Barb?
I would echo what Harry said in the respect of track record of proven leadership over many, many years. I'm a financial advisor as a profession. I'm self-employed. I manage millions of dollars for people every day to protect their families, and so I know how to read a financial statement, how to run a budget. I'm self-employed. I do have time to do this job, and it does take time. If I had tried to do it when my children were younger, it would have been very difficult, because in my mind, it's more than just a city council meeting twice a month. There's briefing meetings. I go to P&Z, I go to Park Board, I go to Water Conservation, and in my world, that's really important to be involved in all of those committees, even though I don't have to, so that I know what's going on. I wanted to share a thought about Madeleine Albright. She just passed away, and she was a European immigrant, and she came to America, went to college, worked her way up the ranks, and became the first female Secretary of State. And I wonder, where else could that happen? Where else but America could that happen? We live in a wonderful country. We live in America. We live in a great state. We live in South Dakota. We live in a great city, Brandon. And I think that we should celebrate the opportunities that we have here for our children and our grandchildren, and make another great day for them. So I thank you for coming. I thank you for letting me serve you all of these years, and I would ask that you let me serve again. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Courtney?
Yes. So I think the main thing I just want to say is I'm excited. I'm excited to be able to be a part of this community. I'm excited to be able to be a part of this tonight. I'm excited to be able to potentially serve you and be able to be a voice for you. One thing that we say, and or at least work on in HR, is that we don't look at a person and look at where they're at in their walk of life. We look at where they stand and how they stand in the culture and their mission, vision, values. So while I do have 2 young children, that doesn't deter me from being dedicated to this role, being dedicated or excited to be here, and that's the commitment I'm willing to take. So thank you very much. And thank you for putting this together. This is a great experience, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you, Courtney. So just some final reminders. Election day is April 12th, and you can vote absentee in person March 28th through April 11th. In-person absentee voting will be located next door at City Hall during business hours, and voting hours on election day are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The polling place in each ward of this municipality is as followed. Ward 1 is at the Brandon Council Chambers, which is here. Ward 2 is located at the Brandon Fire Station, 401 North Sioux Boulevard, and Ward 3 is located at the Brandon Municipal Golf Course. Once again, good luck to each of you candidates, and thank you to all who attended tonight's forum. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Nobody knows what's ever else. It's.
I sent you a Facebook message but just so you can put a face to it, that was me reaching out.
Right, I know I was good to go, but
Yeah, thank you, Rachel.
So that's why we had to jump the
I know, but I wish somebody would have said, I wouldn't have started, I was a little embarrassed, but that's all right. I know.
About 30 minutes away. To go to anything where you
what do we do? And yeah. Dicey. I've gotten that question.
That is a nice thing about living in Brandon.
They're there.
Or you feel at risk, or you're putting somebody else at risk, do the right thing.
What a swift thing that is. 30 minutes and you're home. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, did you go to the chamber? Yes, I bet that was.
The museum stuff. Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you too.
We'll look it up for you tomorrow morning and then I will send you back the answer. Yeah.
Thanks, Barb.
Yeah, that went forever.
That's about.
I know, me too. I'm like, oh, pretty soon I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, I went to state. Yep. Flew along. We've got a 100-pound German Shepherd.
Oh, I had the phone. I had her phone, so.
Give our residents an opportunity to sit down with our city council members in a casual atmosphere over coffee and